Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Javier Dominguez.
My name is Javier
Vengo desde
Dominguez. I am from Peru.
Mi cooperativa se llama
My
Sol
cooperative
y
is called
Café.
Sol y Café.
Sol en español
Sol
es
in
el
Spanish
astro
means the sun
café, no
that
de
lights
sol
our
no
day.
viene de ese nombre de arriba, sino sol viene de solidario.
But the sol in this word does not really refer to the sun. It refers to solidarity, which is necessary for producing our coffee. We need the sun for our coffee, but we also need solidarity with people like you to help us promote and commercialize our coffee. I'm from Latin America. It took me close to 55 hours to arrive here, but I'm very happy to be in this country. We know that there are wonderful people here, and I'm from the northern part of Peru, a region called Jaén San Ignacio. We're very close to Ecuador. Our cooperative began very small, and we've been growing little by little. The only one who hasn't grown is me. I'm still the same size as ever. But the fact that we are small does not mean we do not have huge aspirations and huge dreams. That's our case. With just being here motivates us to keep working. Hearing all of these stories, hearing about the geisha coffee, that kind of thing inspires us. We learn about how these projects were done. We see that other human beings just like us, they're human beings like us who are doing similar work. She's a lot prettier than I am, but I bring something to the table too. Maybe not beauty, but yes, I can think. I have the capabilities, the ability to work, and that motivates me to go back to my community and to tell them, look, I was fortunate enough to be there in Australia. I learned the geisha story. We saw what their coffee has done and the prices that they're getting. Do you want to raise the prices do you want to sell your coffee at good prices? And of course they're going to say yes. What do we have to do? And the answer is we need to dedicate ourselves, continue working hard to deliver quality coffee. What controls the price of coffee is the quality of the coffee, as is the case with geisha. And I think with today's experience, I can go back and say, look, we need to produce coffee, not to drink it. Just like the geisha coffee, the geisha is not produced to drink. It's produced to enjoy. It's not just something you drink. It's something you enjoy. So as small producers, this is one of the things that we worry about is the issue of the productive chain. A small producer in Peru maybe produces about 15 bags per hectare. So one of our goals as small producers is to increase our productivity. And so we are implementing new mechanisms, new methods. We're working in new areas. We're developing new plots.
Ser un pequeño productor también es un esfuerzo.
It's a great effort to be a small coffee grower. But that great effort that is required does not discourage us. It motivates
Y un
us.
pequeño productor en un día a día necesita un esfuerzo, ¿no? Pero lo más importante
To be a small coffee producer requires daily effort. And what's important for us, but another thing you get by being a small producer is you have the ability to put a lot of love and a lot of affection into the work with each plant. And that improves the quality of the coffee. We have our friend here, Rosel Romero. He's a small producer, a young guy. He's 31 years old. He's a leader. He's a leader in the sense that he helped us change the way our small growers work. It was Rosel, this guy you see on the photo here. He's the one who helped us renew our plants. The coffee in Peru goes back many, many years, and many of our coffee producers, most of our coffee producers, subsist on the income they make on their coffee, from their coffee plants. So our grandfathers, our fathers, all educated us, ensured our schooling, all through the income they made selling coffee. So our objective was to increase productivity, increase yield. And in order to do that, we knew we'd have to bring in some innovation, either with new plants or with a renewal of existing trees. So part of our job as a cooperative is for us to come up to a small grower and say, look, if you want to increase your yield, you have to destroy your plants. He looks back at me and says, you're crazy. I can't do that. If I cut down my tree, I'll have no production whatsoever. And if I have no yield, what will I live off of? And we said, but look, if you want to increase your yield, the cutting of your trees will actually long-term improve your yield. One really good experience we had was with Rosel's dad. Rosel's dad was the one who was convinced. He pruned all his trees. He cut back his trees. We showed him how they do that in other countries, in Costa Rica and Colombia. He went there and he saw that, yes, in fact, if I prune well this year, next year my yield will increase. But when he got back to Peru, after visiting these coffee farms in other countries where he saw that yield had increased with pruning, Rosel went out and saw that, came back and told his father and said, look, I want to ask for an advance on my inheritance. I want 1/4 of a hectare. And the dad said, why do you want 1/4 of a hectare? And he says, because I want to prune that 1/4 hectare. And he says, but you're getting coffee already on those plants. Why are you going to cut them back? You're not going to have any coffee if you cut them back. And he said, no, but I want to have more coffee. And they had an argument between dad and son. Finally, he talks it through with him, and finally he got his dad to give him 1/4 hectare to do this pruning. And the father said, I will give you this plot of land, but with two conditions. First, you have to bring the right machinery for it. And second, you need to bring some fabric, a screen. And he said, well, if that's how it has to be, it has to be there. So in order to do the proper pruning, he needed a machine to do it. It was not a manual pruning that did with a saw or a knife. He needed machinery for that. He convinced his dad that he needed to do it with a machine. And the dad said, well, what's this screen for? What's the fabric for? The dad said, I need the fabric so that I can blindfold myself and not see what you're doing to this plot of land of mine. Well, the following year, they saw a marked increase in yield. So the father who one year hardly was willing to give up 1/4 acre, the next year was or 1/4 hectare, the next year was willing to do pruning throughout his entire crop. And we definitely saw an increased yield. So we began like that back in 2008, doing these deep prunings. And of course, that was a difficult thing to sell. But now we have about 2,000 hectares. Of the 2,000 hectares in our cooperative, 600 hectares have already gone through this pruning process, which has increased our yield and increased our quality. Here we have one of our replanted. It was an old plant that was cut way down, and here we see the regrowth, which increased our yield. Now, at no point did we ignore the importance of technical assistance. Now, we do not always have the budget to have access to technical assistance. We can't always contract the great agronomers to come in and the people to come in who can help our producers. So what did we do? We began training our own growers and their sons and daughters. We trained them into extension trainers. And so when we have people that are willing, we get them trained. But by doing it within the families, we keep that training and that knowledge within our cooperative, and that increases the quality of our coffee. So we've been training our trainers, and obviously we have to do selective harvest. We're constantly training them, showing them that if we want to achieve quality coffee, we have to pick only red cherries. We want to leave the immature cherries on the tree. Here we have an example of harvest. Our growers are, of course, small family farms, and the farmers, when it comes harvest time, that's a family project. Here we have the producer and his wife doing the hand picking of cherries.
If you can look at the side where you have the man, you can see some of the green cherries that are still there. And before, they would pick the green, the red, all of the greens, even the ones that fell to the ground. But we said, no, you have to do selective harvesting in order to have quality coffee. Why do we need quality coffee? Because that's what the market demands. So we're transferring know-how and knowledge to the producers so that they're producing what the market wants. The market demands quality, and therefore selective harvesting must be done. While we do have many producers, what we're doing is quality control by lot, in the lots of all the producers. Before, we were more interested in volume. However, now what's of most interest is the quality. And what I heard about Geisha, where they said that they have small volumes but very high profits. And revenues. That's what motivates us. We do quality control on all of the lots. And based on that, we're able to differentiate between the different types of coffees that we're producing, altitude, varieties, different zones, so that we have what we call differentiated coffee that has different profiles. What do we want to bring to this country? Two types of coffee. Coffee that have their own stories. We have one that's called which is an indigenous word. And what is So I would ask you, who was your first hero in your life? Who was it? I think we all think, well, at least in my case, and I imagine in your case, our first hero was our father. As children, we say, okay, this is our hero, and we want to do what our dad does and what our dad wants us to do. So we have a community, an indigenous community, and they want to capture their culture. And in order to do that, we promote that crown that you see. Those are bird feathers, red and yellow bird feathers. And the indigenous community use to indicate who is the head of the family. And we want our coffee to be like our hero. We want it to be the best. Then we have another type of coffee. It's a coffee that we call Dios te dé. And if I give you that name, you might not be familiar with it. But if I say we call it toucan, then you'll be familiar with it. So why do we call it Dios te dé? Dios te dé, which is a toucan, it comes from the song that the toucan sings.
Dios te dé, te dé, te dé. ¿No? El tweet es Dios te dé.
So that's how they chirp, Dios te dé, te dé, te dé in Spanish. And in our community, they say that whoever hears the song of the toucan will have a great day.